It's just spinning. Okay, there we go. Okay, we are live. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our monthly FEDSA meetup. Very happy to have you here. Tonight, Skulk is going to be giving us a talk, and we'll have some discussion around that. But before we get into that, I just want to do our usual thanks to our sponsors. That's NML and IO, software development companies in Cape Town. Code Capsules, who've supported our workshops over the last year or so. And CodeSpace, where we've had various meetups and workshops along the way. And tonight, our talk is CSS view transitions, the future of animation on the web. And Skulk is going to take us through some of these and show us some examples. Skulk, do I need to do a long introduction about who you are, or does it?
Oh, please no. I actually have a ton I want to go through, so
okay.
Probably for the best if we keep it short, yeah.
Okay.
Link in the description.
link in bio. Yeah.
Yeah.
Skulk is a web developer. I've known him for a long time. We kind of co-run FEDSA together with some other people, and he's always willing to share what he knows, which is great. So without further ado, Skulk, I'll hand over to you. Just one little thing, if you have any questions you want to ask, just type them in the live stream chat, and we will deal with them as we go through the evening, or collect them all at the end to answer your questions. Yeah, so please, anything that you would like to know, anything that's not familiar, this is all pretty cutting edge new stuff. So you might have a lot of questions around it. Please just pop them in the chat. Okay,
yeah.
Thanks, Skulk.
Yeah, like I definitely want to definitely want to punt that as well. Like if you have any questions, sorry, let me just, it's been a while since I've been on the presenting side, so I just want to figure out like how this works again. Just let me know when you can see my screen, Justin.
Yeah, we've got it.
Yes.
Mighty Morphin Markdown.
Yeah, I just couldn't resist. Yeah, things are going to get wild. But before we get into that, let me just do my classic who am I? I'm going to try and do a speed run here because there's so much to cover. I think Mike and myself did like a little bit of an impromptu just chat about kind of CSS view transitions and so forth on JS Breakpoint, and like we barely touched the surface. So yeah, let's go. Okay, but just so quick introduction about myself. Who am I? I kind of am involved in a lot of kind of the tech space, the open source and community space. One of the admins on ZA Tech. We're kind of up to 17,000 members now. And then obviously one of the co-founders, along with Justin, of FEDSA, and then also Zap, which is kind of like the product design side, alongside with Liesel Bester. Cool. Then I generally mention this whenever I intro myself. I don't have a formal background in tech, background in visual arts, worked as a graphic designer for a bit, and kind of I was very fortunate position where the way you would do a web design would be the same way you do a book cover or a flyer or whatever. You just make a picture and you slice it up and put it in tables. And so I did, as part of general graphic design, kind of web design stuff as well. And then over time, like front end became a thing, UI became a thing, UX became a thing. Now we're kind of like in the world of like UI engineering and stuff, and it's just become so specialized. And kind of that's where I find myself at this very, very little corner of specialization that is at the intersection of interfaces and JavaScript and code and software engineering and product design and all that stuff. But yeah. I've also done a lot of teaching and training, universities, private institutions, and so forth. Currently taking a bit of a break from the teaching stuff, just focusing on more practical work. A big part of that is just like the absolute mess that is AI and ChatGPT and whatever. I don't. Yeah, I'd rather let all the institutions figure that out themselves, and then I'll maybe dip my toes again in the world of academia when that's a bit settled. Yes, also very involved in the world of open source, and do a lot of contract work, mostly just do consulting work nowadays. And I do have a life outside of work. Live in the northern suburbs in Cape Town. Have 2 daughters, one that's a year old, another one that's turning 3 now. Yeah. And then also I tend to make a point of like kind of always talking about and kind of as a goal to destigmatize kind of mental health and mental illness and so forth. So always when I do an introduction of myself, I make a point to kind of mention the talks I've done on like mental health and mental illness in the world of tech. I myself am on Cipralex, I'm on Venlaw as well. Saved my life, those 2 meds. I did a talk at DevConf 2 years ago, last year I think, or 2 years ago, I can't remember, on like kind of like mental illness in the world of tech. And then I also co-host a podcast along with a friend of mine also called Skalk Neetling, which you can just find at MHIT, which is basically mentalhealthintech.org.za. We recently had Jeff from CSS Tricks and Smashing Magazine and so forth also share a bit about his story, which is really cool. Yeah, and then if you want to get in touch with me, you can just look for Skull Fenter. I'll pop up somewhere on social media and so forth. All right, cool. Now with all of that out of the way, let us get to the important stuff, the reason why everyone's here. Let's talk about some Markdown, but specifically let's talk about some Markdown animation. All right. If you've watched my web components talk before, there's actually a couple of slides that I'm reusing. And the reason being that I think there's kind of like this kind of convergence of things happening at the moment in terms of this area between what we would traditionally consider a website and software kind of becoming very, very fuzzy. And I think in order to really understand that and to make sense of that, and to actually understand the roles of these new technologies and new APIs and stuff, we need to get a bit of a sense of actually kind of where we are in the life cycle and the history of the web at a higher level, and where all these things fit in and how they, like, so in other words, like how do CSS view transitions stand in relation to React? Can you use them with React? Can you not? Do you need to use JavaScript? Can you use it with like WordPress or Laravel? Or, do you need like some type of client-side thing? Can you use it with a static site generator? Can you use it with something like Astro or Eleventy? And I think in order to answer all those questions, and the answer to all of them is yes, basically. But in order to understand the nuances there, we just need to get a sense of kind of what CSS view transitions are in the broader scope of things. Cool. So basically, I already did a bit of an intro of who I am. Then I want to talk about the problem. What is the problem that CSS view transitions are solving? And why is CSS view transitions even a thing? Why are we even actually talking about it now? And then I want to talk about the spec itself. I am super excited about CSS view transitions. I tend to really find myself talking quite a bit about all these kind of things that are kind of at the, I don't want to say periphery, the horizon, let's say the horizon of kind of the web and, kind of things that are coming into play now, whether that be web components or whether that be like progressive web apps. Those are 2 topics I've spoken about quite a lot. But I think what makes CSS view transitions so amazing is that you basically need just a 1-minute understanding of it to get a massive amount of value, which is not the case with, progressive web apps and web components and so forth. In order to actually start getting value from those things, you really need to actually really understand what it is and all the nuances and the low-level stuff. Honestly, there's a point where I'm probably just going to show 3 lines of code, which I'm going to speak now from memory. I think it's view transition navigation auto, which is just 3 lines of CSS, 2 lines actually. The last line is the curly bracket. you can just use that, and like you can already get a lot of value from CSS view transitions. So I think what makes me very excited about this specific specification is like there's a lot of depth to it. If you really want to control it at a low level, like thinking about this idea of the extensible web and so forth, but it's very different from things like web components and PWAs insofar that like you can spend 1 minute just reading up about it and you already have stuff you can use in real world in your actual work. And then I've just assembled a GitHub repo of some examples. How do you use this with like basic, just plain HTML, server-side rendering, static site generation, client-side JavaScript, libraries. I have an example where I use it in React and so forth. And then hopefully at the end we can just have a bit of a free-form discussion. My hope is that Justin is probably going to interrupt me here and there, maybe raise any questions that people have, maybe questions that he himself has. Just a reminder to put any questions in the text chat. That's where you put it, and I'll respond to it as best I can. And I encourage you to do it. Don't worry about interrupting me. There's a lot here. All right. So before we do that, Justin, I just want to check whether there are any questions just yet, whether you have a question before we get into it.
Not specifically right now, Skulk, but I am interested in what are some of the limitations on our purely CSS now animations API that we got, as powerful as they are, compared to what we can still do with JavaScript, like interrupting things and so on, which is a little trickier.
Yes.
Yeah, but something.
I can maybe
pick up after the examples.
I can super quickly just give a broad answer to that. So yeah, it's very early days. Like this is, it's basically supported in all browsers. The only one being Firefox doesn't support it just yet, but this is finalized. It has to be implemented eventually. So it's still early days, but this is set in stone. It's going to happen. It's supported everywhere except Firefox. And what's really nice about animation is always a progressive enhancement. It's very, very rare that your product becomes unusable because the animation didn't work. So this is what makes this also so amazing, and why it's so easy to just like understand a little bit and get immediate value compared to, once again, things like web components and PWAs, because there's so many foot guns and caveats and things. And in this case, if an animation doesn't work, if it doesn't animate or transition and it just instantly changes, that's fine. Like that's the default behavior. So, but one thing that I do see they're going to have to, there's two things that they're going to have to solve. The one has already been raised a lot, and that is this concept of persistent elements. At the moment, elements are not persistent. So that means you can animate things between two different pages, but it's a new instance of the thing. So if you have an audio player or whatever, and you're animating that between two different pages, like you can't keep track. You can't keep track of where it's currently playing. It's going to re-render it's going to recreate that element again. But that's just the default behavior. Like at the moment, there's no way in the web to persist an element between page loads. Okay, but to me, that's the next step, because effectively what the animation, like the view transition does, is it makes it seem like it's like there's no page load that happens in the background. Very much like we would expect from a single page app or whatever. So persistent elements, that's something that you can't do here, that you can still require a single page app for. The other one as well is like the current implementation of it is very straightforward. They're probably going to refine it as we get deeper into it and as it gets more mature. But at the moment, while your page is animating, you can't interact with anything. So that's fine. Generally, your animation shouldn't be longer than 300 milliseconds or 600 milliseconds. But, if you want to do kind of more slow, slower animations. Just be mindful that if you're going to animate for like 2 seconds or something as something moves, someone won't be able to use your page or click on things. And there's reasons for that, and the reason, I'll get into those reasons. But so those are the two ones that I just off the bat would mention where I would still pull JavaScript in. But like that's like the remaining 10 or 5%. Like I think like this API basically gives us 90% of what you had to do with JavaScript previously. And also in actually this is one of the rare instances where the API itself is actually way easier to use than a library. If we look once again, and it's so rare that this happens. It's so rare that it's actually easier to just use the native functionality than to pull in something like, what was that? React, CSS animation groups, or there are a ton of these libraries, and they're way harder to use.
Frame-O-Motion, I think.
Yes,
Frame-O-Motion is the most popular one, I think.
Yes. Okay, but let's get into it. Okay, cool. So I want to start a bit by just outlining the problem. And in order to do that is whenever I talk about this type of thing, I have to talk about my own history and kind of the role that the web itself played in my life. So the first time I was exposed to the internet was 1996. So just to give you a bit of context, this is kind of like, when Hunchback of Notre Dame came out, Spice Girls Wannabe was like really on fire. There's me doing karate. All right, cool. Look at that guy. Royal marriage, divorce, and perhaps more importantly, our family got one of these bad boys, like 56K, like US robotics modem, and like I always tell the story where actually our neighbors, like the husband worked for Telkom, and so he obviously was very much into this type of stuff, like kind of telecommunications and stuff. And he told us about this thing called the internet, and they got a modem. And I remember him telling my dad that, that's about the time that the new VW, like the new Beetle came out, the Volkswagen. And he mentioned that they were up like half an hour last night and reading up about it. And I was like, half an hour? What the hell? How do you spend half an hour on the internet? Like, what do you even do? And it's and I often make the joke that like nowadays, if someone told me they only spend half an hour a day on the internet, I'd be like, geez, what can you even do in half an hour? That's basically like no time at all. But anyway, so this kind of kickstarted my own kind of experience of the web and kind of my own introduction to the web. And kind of this is kind of what the web was like back then. I think to say that everything was animated is an understatement. I think if you look at anything from the web back then, like something that really stands out compared to the web nowadays is just like how much like movement and animation and things there were. If you probably know about Ling's cars. Let me just quickly Google that, Ling's cars. Which is kind of like a good example of like, so he goes for this kind of like aesthetic, it's actually he's actually pretty well known. So it's this aesthetic where things are like super bouncy, everything's moving, everything's flashing. Whether that's a good thing in retrospect or not, we can have a discussion about that, but like the reality is like there was a lot of movement in the early web, so much so that you had the marquee tool, which is actually just text moving across the screen, and they've just removed that from HTML because they're like, this is insane, we can't actually support that. But but I think like as a side effect of this, like part of this was also that no one really took the web seriously, and I really like, this is a phenomenal book. I highly encourage anyone to read it, How the Internet Happened. And so he basically says, like there were a couple of people that were like, this internet thing is gonna change the world. It's like this is kind of like the dawn of like a new information age and whatever. But like a lot of people like kind of were very skeptical of that, because they looked at the internet and they kind of saw a toy, like something that kids use, and very much it was mostly something that kids used. Like, that's kind of where I learned HTML and CSS, is just kind of like hacking away at websites and doing weird stuff and creating like a website for my Pokemon cards or whatever. And like, he does acknowledge that, like, a lot of people had a valid point that, even with the benefit of hindsight, knowing what the web turned into, the early web was very amateurish. And so much so that Paul Krugman, who's a Nobel, he received the Nobel Prize for Economics, Nobel Peace Prize for Economics, or I don't know, is it the Nobel Prize for Economics or Nobel Peace Prize for? I don't know, but the Nobel thing, the Nobel thing for economics. He's published a ton of books, very well respected economist. But he predicted that the impact of the internet will be no greater than that of the fax machine by the year 2005, and we know how that turned out. But like, it's you'd be hard pressed to really not see this through the same lens that today you might look at something like, I don't know, I'm getting old now. What would be an example? I want to say TikTok, but TikTok's massive, so that's not a good example. But I don't know, something weird that the kids use nowadays. That people don't take seriously. And I think to kind of prove this point, down here on the right hand side, you might see this page that says Mark's homepage. Well, guess who also made a website during this time? Yeah, there's this chap. He also had a website on GeoCities, and someone was what would be the word? Someone was, I don't know, like detective-ish enough to actually find it a couple of years ago. But yeah, so this is like, most of us kind of grew up with this, where the web wasn't really anything you could do as a career. It's just something you fooled around with. And then this thing, the web 2.0, kind of happened, and basically this term 2.0, came from this very ironically titled print magazine, 1999, by this lady called Darcy. And she kind of said that, like, at the time, most people recognized websites as kind of like similar to digital brochures, displays of times or aerial text, eye-grabbing graphics, and highlighted hyperlinks. But she said, like, that is kind of a fleeting thing. We are moving into a space where the web will be understood not as a screen full of text and graphic, but as a transport mechanism to an ether through which interactivity happens. And like, that's kind of like, I think, with the benefit of hindsight, we kind of know that that's what ended up happening. The fact that we are using StreamYard here. I'm presenting this through slides.com, and you guys are probably watching this through YouTube, and you're probably leaving comments on the side of the screen. That is an indication of we're kind of way past the point of actually what we use the web for is to actually deliver interactivity and software, as opposed to just pages that you look at. Okay, and and this was such a big thing that in 2007, the second design indaba I ever attended at the Cape Town Convention Center, the actual theme of the second one was, Web 2.0. And there's this amazing video, which, man, like, it's, man, it makes me feel old if I just watch the trailer of it. I don't know if it's going to work out. Yeah. But yeah, like, the whole topic was Web 2.0, and it said, like, a new generation of web applications, technology, and most significantly, users are predicted. So, kind of like, so we were kind of like at this point where the web was becoming this, moving from this place of just serving up pages to actually becoming a means to deliver software to users, whether that software is Netflix, Trello, Google Docs, Figma, and so forth and so forth. So that's kind of where we are today. But obviously, you probably know the web didn't start out like that, so this guy called Sir Tim Berners-Lee, he basically created the web as a means to kind of share academic documents. And the very first website ever created by him is actually still online at this URL down here. And yeah, you can go to it today. It still works. But like as mentioned, like the whole point was initially like he worked at CERN, which did kind of like nuclear and physics research and so forth, and it was a way for academics to share documents and so forth. And basically then we kind of started realizing like the potential of this thing that was originally created to serve documents and so forth, which still works very well if you're like Bob the plumber and whatever, and you need a website that's like about me, contact me with a contact form, a landing page that's a photo of you like fixing, I don't know, toilets or whatever, and your plumber van, like a nice panorama photo of you standing next to your plumbing van or whatever. Once again, kind of this idea of a digital brochure. The web still works phenomenally for that type of thing, but increasingly, we started moving into a space where people realize that the web is actually phenomenal for delivering software. But this is kind of like at the start of Web 2.0. This is kind of where we were at. This is what we had. So we kind of were in this position where there was this awkward phase where people started seeing what the web could become and what collectively the community wanted the web to grow into, and all the browser vendors and so forth. But we were so far away from actually having the tools to do that. And like, so in the world of academia, this is what you call a liminal space. And it often comes with a lot of like awkwardness or uneasiness and so forth. Like if you think about liminal spaces in architecture, it's usually spaces where you kind of feel a bit, uneasy. It's a space that's not meant. It's a space that you're moving through. You can think almost like a hotel, like a hotel like corridor or whatever. It's it has like a strange, it's an awkward kind of weird space that makes you feel a bit uneasy. And we have experience with this as humans, as teenagers as well, where you're kind of like halfway between this place of being like a child and then kind of like on your way to becoming something else, which is an adult, but you're kind of stuck in between two worlds. And one of these might be me, might not be me. I'll just put that out there. But effectively, this phase for the web was kind of dominated by two technologies, Silverlight and Flash. And if you've been working in the world of web for a long enough time, you've probably touched one of these. And so the idea was that basically, because we had this thing that effectively was just meant to serve up documents, but now all of a sudden we saw all this potential and the tooling wasn't there, that you have this third-party software that actually, I should have actually put Java applets in here as well. I completely forgot. But Java applets are kind of very similar as well, where you have proprietary software that just you run it inside the HTML. You're not using the native technologies of the web. You're literally packaging something in the browser page and you're deploying it to users and they run it. But they are probably, yes?
And often needed a third-party plugin of some sort to execute. Yeah.
Yes. So you needed to update your version of Flash or whatever. So nowadays we're kind of in a place where the web is not only a delivery platform, but it's also the runtime in which the software runs, which is really cool because if I don't have to update some third-party software all the time to be able to use Netflix or whatever. I can just go to Netflix and it's always going to work. Doesn't matter if I go to it through my Kindle, if I go to it, well, I guess that's not actually true, but more or less, like you don't have to update anything. A lot of times it'll just be too old and you can't actually run it. But most of the big companies actually go out of their way to support as many browsers as possible. But yeah, as Justin said, like back in this day, the web was purely just a delivery platform. So you just got the software and then it had to run inside something else. Until this guy came around with his fancy phone. So some of you might know about this. So basically, Steve Jobs was on a mission to kill all this stuff, to kill Silverlight, to kill Flash, and those things. And because in retrospect, like this is a very complex story, and it's almost a talk in itself to unpack it. But so initially, the idea that he had for the iPhone was that how apps would work would be very close to what we would consider a progressive web app today. And so that was slated for a very long time to be the way you would actually just build apps with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And like at the time, there was this concept of DHTML, which kind of started competing with Flash and Silverlight and so forth, which is like using the actual technologies in the browser itself. So CSS, the DOM, client-side scripting, and stuff. And today, that's just what we know as the web. Because it's just become the de facto way to build things on the web. But for a very long time, this wasn't a given. And so he wanted to really push this idea, but turns out it actually was pretty slow. And given the restrictions of phones and the hardware that phones used, you couldn't really do that. But also the problem with Flash and Silverlight and so forth, because it in order to actually make it run on the web as well, there were a lot of trade-offs, a lot of security things and so forth. So, what ended up happening is we started seeing this split where, you got all these technologies that we started using to actually build apps, like for mobile phones and whatever, so everything from like Swift and Kotlin and Cordova, Ionic and whatever to deploy to a Play Store. And then you still had the web up here, which had like some software, actually quite a lot. You still had a lot of like really like complex things like built in the web, maybe not to the degree that you have today, but there were kind of these two competing worlds. There was kind of this world of native software, and then the kind of the world of software in the browser, which kind of went with this kind of DHTML approach. And obviously now with PWAs and whatever, we're seeing that line get a bit more fuzzy, but we're not there yet. Still has a very long way to go, but there's definitely a trajectory to kind of make the distinction between these two worlds less clear and significant. And I do think CSS view transitions is probably I think like it's probably up there with service workers in terms of like blurring the lines between maybe even more so. I don't know. Like I actually think CSS view transitions were on the precipice of something really big, and I think a lot of people don't realize it just yet, because it's so simple to use. But anyway, I'm going to get into that. But if this is the first, yes, go for it.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right on that. It's a kind of a portent, but in a good way, of some very interesting things that are going to come along because of the way it's been implemented in the browser and what they're doing to make it work. And there's some that, like, if you really dig underneath it, they're doing some incredible things to make this work. Like they're not rewriting APIs; they're just hooking into existing ones with a new method. And offloading things from main threads, and creating a pseudo DOM. It's amazing in the browser.
And like in that pseudo DOM, you even have classes inside it. You use kind of like it's a tree in itself. I'm going to get into some of that, but like I can't, like, it's not an overstatement just saying like how excited I am about this.
I absolutely share that, and agree with you that. it's going to lead to some super interesting things.
Yeah, and the thing is as well, this is one of those things where as I started reading the specification, I was like, shit, I need to do a talk about this. Like, this is how this talk came about. And like, it's just, I think in retrospect, we're going to realize how big this is for the people who haven't really been paying attention. And, who the hell pays attention to CSS nowadays anymore? So that's actually not a lot of people. But I'm here to tell you, like, the time is now to start paying attention to this. This is going to be massive. And I think it's so easy to implement. I think people said this about web components. People said this about progressive web apps. But I think the key difference here is it's so easy to use that it's just going to become the de facto way. Like, it's literally like like it's you if you don't use it, I do think at a certain point, not using it is going to have to be a deliberate decision. Because it's so easy to use. You're going to be like, yeah, I probably don't want that type of behavior on my site. But yeah, let's get a bit deeper into this. Okay, so the thing is, like, oh, my slides are all messed up here. Whoops. Okay, so on the side here, I have some really cool animations and stuff of like mobile apps and software and so forth. Let me just see if I can check this out. Like, so let's edit my slides on the go. Okay, no, I'm not going to do that. But like, I have some things here, like in terms of just showing like I think I accidentally deleted this slide, but showing some like actual native behavior and so forth. And so one of the things that was a key difference between this world of the DOM and HTML and CSS is was very much still stuck in this world of static pages. So you would click on something, you'd probably get some loading indicator. More often than not, it would be this little thing here at the top of your browser where the favicon is, that would just kind of like spin, and it's literally loading a new page, and the new page would come and here's a new page. You click, wait, new page. Whereas, in actual software and in mobile apps and stuff, like, there wasn't really this idea of looking at static pages. Like the experience was a lot more fluid and, like tactile. So you would move things and you would do something and something would come in and out. So you had a much better sense of like this tactileness, this, there's like almost like things take up space and things move around, and you have a sense of how things go over one another and underneath one another. That's kind of like part of kind of like the underlying methodology of something like material design, which is kind of, you're using this concept of material as a metaphor. So things going over one another, things being closer to you, further away, and so forth. But you can only really achieve that if things are moving around. That's the only way you get a sense for the physicality of things. And we've never had that on the web, natively. But if you weren't like kind of anticipating this right now, I don't know why you even came to this talk, but you can probably imagine like where I'm going here. And that is basically that, we're going from this world of having 3 pages that are maybe like static to where things just like morph and move, and you have transitions between these pages that make it feel like that things are just moving around on your screen without really realizing that you're going to a new URL, you're hitting a new route and so forth. And as Justin said, like, it's like the way they've achieved this is so ingenious. This is one of those specifications that you just read it and you're just like so surprised all the time by how clever the solutions are. But yeah, so to kind of like, I have this animated GIF here, which, all of us probably know how animated GIFs work, and that is, it's effectively just a couple of frames that just move, like, transition from one frame to another to kind of create this illusion of actual like movement or transformation or morphing and so forth. And and this is effectively what we also get with the CSS view transition. So if we were to have these 6 different pages, like, you would probably move between them in a much more fluid way than you're used to, like on the native web. Instead of page 1 load, page 2 load, like things might move in, might move out, things might come from backwards, come forward, and so forth. So there's a much more tactile feel to it. And for the most part, you do this in a very declarative manner, and this is what makes it so amazing. You don't need to actually implement this yourself. You literally, and this is the key part, like I don't if this is the first time you're hearing about CSS view transitions, is like what makes it so amazing is you literally just tell the browser, this thing on this page is the same thing as this thing on this page, and it handles it for you. It calculates whether the thing needs to move, whether the thing needs to resize, whether the thing needs to decrease in opacity or whatever. Like, it's like if you were around in the Flash days, there was this thing called tweening, which is basically like, you have, it's almost like keyframes, but you have something in a specific state and you have it in another state, and you just change the properties and it calculates how to get there through an animation. Okay, so you've been able to do this, for a while now. I mentioned, React Group. I can't remember the name of the thing. I think it's called React Group CSS animations or something. I'll maybe put a link in the comments down below. But all of this was like really like JavaScript heavy. So you effectively, for better or worse, re-implemented a JavaScript browser inside your browser, where you didn't actually do page navigations and page transitions and stuff, but you were actually running JavaScript to create a fake browser that transitions between pages. So you almost re-implemented the browser itself, and this is kind of where this idea of an SPA or a single page app comes from, where it's like you only load a single page, and inside that single page is all this JavaScript that emulates the behavior of transitioning between pages, but you never leave the actual page. And that's not ideal, but there are still some circumstances where you need to do that. It's the CSS view transitions don't solve all your problems, but even if it just like allows you to not have to do that for some pages, that's massive. So I think this meme up here is from the HTMX website, actually, which effectively, it tells you all you need to know about working with the JavaScript history API, which is something that you just get for free if you're just using regular page navigation. You don't need to re-implement all of that yourself. Okay, so W3C to the rescue. Okay. And this is where CSS View Transitions Module Level 1 comes from. They're already working on Module Level 2. There is some parts of Module Level 2 already implemented in browsers. But it's like this is a lot of really bleeding edge stuff. So far that if you were to Google anything about CSS View Transitions, you might actually encounter articles that say, oh, you shouldn't use this yet, or a lot of them say you have to go in Chrome and enable some flags in order to be able to use that. Like, it is so new that even articles from a couple of months ago might actually be outdated. So just keep that in mind. But yeah, I'm now, as promised, I'm going to show you those 3 lines that you can add. That's literally just going to, if you just add this, you get like automatic animations out of the box. In somewhere in your CSS. Okay, and the CSS just needs to be available to all pages. So you probably need the styles.css or whatever that you just pull into all your HTML. You go at view transitions, opening and closing curly brackets, navigation, auto. That's all you do. If you do this, you basically tell the browser, hey, Mr. Browser, animate my changes between pages. And you figure it out. I'm not going to tell you how to animate. I can, like, there's a lot of low-level stuff. So Justin spoke about kind of the pseudo elements and, like the hooks and stuff. You can really get down and create really granular stuff, and people have done some amazing stuff. But effectively, if you just put this, you just tell the browser, hey, you figure it out. And more often than not, it's just going to do a crossfade, which is like it just fades the one page into the next page, unless you tell it which elements are actually the same element. But I'm going to show some examples now. But if you have this line and you just tell it like this element, this header, or this item in the list is the same item in the list on the next page, it's going to actually manually automatically handle that transition for you. And here's a very basic example. This is basically the hello world of CSS view transitions. So we have our HTML, we have a head, just some like regular stuff. So your UTF, your kind of viewport, like you just always put this in your HTML. And then you see I just have an inline style here with that view transitions navigation at auto or :auto. And you'll see it's actually so new that my syntax highlighting actually doesn't pick it up. And you'll actually find that in VS Code, that in some places it actually won't actually syntax highlight this because it's still so new. Then I have 2 pages. I just have this index HTML. I have this reversed HTML. I just prefetch the reversed HTML just so when I click the navigate, it doesn't go to the new page or it doesn't load the new page for the first time. I just load it in the background so it's immediately available. And so basically, I have an unordered list, and both of them have a style. And I'll talk about this view transition name thing in a second. But effectively, I give this one the name item 1 and this one item 2. And basically, this just tells it, okay, this is a thing. This is the thing you need to keep track of. These are 2 different things. This one is called item 1. This one's called item 2. You can call this whatever you want. You can call this blue thing, green thing. You can call this Skulk, and you can call this Justin or whatever. And then I have another page reversed, and this is exactly the same page. The only difference is I've just swapped the order of these around. So I just have actually didn't do it. Whoops. Okay. I need to go and fix my slides, but I should have swapped it around. So item 2 should have been at the top, and item 1 should have been at the bottom, and like this. Like the view transition names should have also like just been swapped around. But I think in my actual example, it's working. So let me just quickly open that up. Oh, and now you can see all my memes and everything. And you can see I'm playing some Oxygen Not Included. And like clockwork, my daughter also comes in. As professional as always. Where is the... Now I need to also just find it. Okay. Hey, whistle. Okay, so the veneer of professionalism is already out the window. So yeah, let's just roll with it. Say hello for the mensen. Hello. Okay. All right. So I'm going to show you the intro, and then we can maybe have a quick discussion, and maybe Justin can ask some questions if he wants. Let me just open this. I'll share the repo with all these examples. As mentioned, here's my index.html. You'll see the syntax highlighting isn't even working, but like this actually works in Chrome. And here's the same one. It's just I've reversed the order. Check this out, okay? So if I go live, okay, so here is the example. Check this out. So, hey! I don't know if you can see that animation. If you can see that animation, like
we can see it.
I don't know what the frame rate is like. Yeah, but check this out.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, and you'll see the URL actually updates up there. Hey,
yeah,
and not a single line of JavaScript. Okay.
So I think important to note here that you're actually going to 2 different HTML pages.
Yeah.
They're animating. Amazing.
Yeah. If I open the network tab, you'll actually see this page navigation. So check there. Okay, what is all this? Is probably all my extensions. What is this all? Okay, I wasn't expecting this. I don't know what the. Oh, you know what it is? I think it's. Yeah. It's because I think I'm serving it through a WebSocket through VS Code. But if I just look at this. Okay, I can't see the actual HTML now. A doc. There we go. Check that. All right. Yeah. So it literally just goes to a new page. I have some other examples here that I'm super keen to also work through. I have one where it's basically also just hard-coded HTML, and so where I have some basic sorting. Then I have an example where we can maybe also get some filtering and sorting and stuff working with static site generation. So this is where you create the HTML ahead of time. I have some server-side rendering stuff. So this is you're using something like Express or Laravel or Django or whatever, and then I have one that's just plain JavaScript on the client side, and then I also have an example of React, where I can maybe chat about some considerations when you're using React and so forth. But I think before I dive into that, Justin, I don't know if there are any questions from your side or from anyone else or so forth. Yeah.
Scott, can we just look at the? Can we look at the code again?
Yes. Okay. Let me just. This one is a bit nicer. The one I have here, where the syntax highlighting isn't completely broken. Is this useful?
Yeah. So perhaps we can just look at the styles there that you've got in there, those inline styles, view transition name, item 1. So those transition names, that's the important thing, right?
Yes. So let me actually show what happens. Sorry. Let me actually show what happens when you don't do this. Okay. So if I remove this, then... Sorry, just give me a second. I'm back in a second. She has to go sleep. I don't know why she's awake or where her mom is. Give me a second.
Sure.
All right, sorry. Yeah, that's how it goes. This is my life now. Wouldn't want it any other way. Okay, so yes. Sorry, you were asking.
Here you go, Skulk.
Yeah. Don't tell her mom that. Her mom is still convinced that she wants to be a ballerina. Yeah, that's a future software engineer if I've ever seen one. So yeah, yeah. Sorry, you were asking about the view transition name.
Yes. And then you were saying, you were going to show what happens if you don't have them. Yeah.
Yes. So so this is if you don't have this, you exclusively only add this up here.
Yeah.
Just these 3 lines. No, you change nothing else on your site. Then you get this crossfade effect. I have so many things open. I'm probably breaking like 5 million NDAs right now from like client work. Sorry, like if you can't tell, things are just hectic on this side. Okay, so cool. You'll see it has a bit of a crossfade effect there.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's noticeable on the video stream, but it basically
we can see it. It's just like a slight fade. Yeah.
Yeah. So by default, let me add something else in there as well. So let's add item 3 here in the middle. If you don't add those, then it basically does opacity. It just goes opacity, the old page, opacity 0, and then the new one. Cool. So you see
opacity
it just like
1,
crossfades the stuff. So this is already pretty neat. Like, even just to have done something like this previously was massive. And you can imagine this is really cool if you have, for example, a header up here and the header actually stays the same. But if you do a page navigation, the actual content just fades in and out. It already is a very nice effect in terms of just like grounding what is the shell of your app and what's the stuff that changes. So it's really nice in order to just actually see when you navigate to a new page what has changed. And once again, this just takes 3 lines of CSS. So yeah, but what you can do is you can tell it specifically. Okay, and once again, I'll just call this AAA and call this BB. And then they just need the exact same names. So obviously now nothing is going to happen because
because
so
there's no
now it's
matching
still
now.
still does it, but like if I match them up, it moves them around. It moves it to the new position. So even if I put like a ton of stuff in between, check this out. It calculates it. This is so this is like magic, guys. It's amazing. Oops.
Oh, you're missing the closing.
Oh, yeah, Copilot.
Second one.
Yeah, check how it moves. Oh wait, so this is interesting. I actually got it wrong. I actually said, because obviously, like, you can be like, okay, cool, this one says item 1 and this one says item 2, but it obviously doesn't know that these are the same element. You know, for all you know, they could have the exact same name or label. You need to tell it independently that it's like what the things are. So if we now go, check this out. It is
it's amazing,
guys. Like, think accordions, think like drag and drop. Like, this opens up so many options.
One thing I just sorry, I just want to also check here. I see you're doing a prefetch. I mean, I know that's just to get that early. Do you recommend that?
So my connection is quite fast, so you won't notice it on mine. I think it'll, and also it's probably cached now from doing it previously. But obviously what'll happen is, like, it does have a timeout, which very sensibly is a good thing, because you wouldn't want it to click it and then let me see. You wouldn't want to click
and then it's got to go
and then
and
wait for the page to load.
And
then only once the page comes in, then start animating. That's going to be very weird. So if like, I think it has a 4-second timeout. If within 4 seconds it hasn't loaded, then the animation's not going to fire. I think it's 4 seconds. I'm not sure. It varies by browser, and I think they're still refining it. But there is a timeout. So in some cases, if you don't prefetch, the reason why I prefetch it is because, like, you might not get an animation the first time you do it, and then the second time, if it's already cached locally or whatever, then you might get it immediately. Or if you go back, because the browser also caches your back and forth. And check this also, you know, like how cool is this? Like, I'm just going back and forwards, and it's actually doing the animations.
Very cool.
I cannot get over this.
Just something to add on that, with that timeout and stuff, it actually uses a rel. It hooks into an rel attribute, which is expect, which is one of those rels that you've never heard of.
Yes. Wait, it's REL. Like
REL. REL expect.
Oh, you mean rel?
Rel, not rail.
I thought you meant, but there's also that. What is that thing where it's like resting, whatever, which is this heuristic. I think. Yeah, I thought this is what you were talking about.
No.
But it's tangentially. It's tangentially related.
It is, yeah.
Okay, but you mean, okay, like, so you see where I'm from in this northern suburbs, we talk about the rel. So we're talking about the rel prefetch, not the rail. Okay.
What that does is it's a render blocking thing that allows the page to be render blocked after a certain period.
Yes. But that's a different thing, but I'm not even going to touch on that.
Sorry, just an aside. But just also to point to how this is just hooking into all these already existing things.
Yes. And also, like, to show this, like, super quickly, so I don't want to get into this. This is maybe a topic of another talk, is like a more advanced version of this. But you'll actually see if I open my like dev tools here, you'll see like it actually there. You'll see it creates like a pseudo element.
It creates a pseudo element here, and you can actually style that pseudo element as well.
Yes. So I can say, I think it's on the HTML always, so you can go view transition, and I can just say background red.
Yeah.
Check this out. So, oops. What did I miss?
That looks right.
Let's see. I maybe just need to reload. View transition. Okay, I'm probably missing something. But
it probably needs to be on both pages.
It is on both.
Is it? Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe. It is correct. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm probably missing something or messing something up or whatever. Oh, I don't know what it is. Okay. But anyway, you can actually style it. Like, I'm going to show a basic example. I don't want to go into too much depth. If you want to see the full range of what you can do with this thing, Astro has a really cool example. They also Astro movies, CSS view transition. I'll also maybe, how do I get the movies one? They have the really cool records one. They have some really cool examples that they've kind of example demos that they've built with it. And Astro is really pushing this specification because I can't find the movies one now. Let's see. Because like let's see. Take 1 second and see. So in this example, it tells you to actually enable the flag. You don't need to do that anymore. This was back. Oh no, this was 2020. Okay, this is a while ago. Okay, but you don't need to anymore. But anyway, so here, like this is all page navigations. So they have some really cool. They have a movies one as well, which I hope I can find. But yeah, and the reason why they're really pushing it is because they kind of allow you to generate your HTML and stuff ahead of time. And so this is really compelling if you want to pre-render your HTML but still have it feel like an app. You'll see it actually updates up there. Okay, cool. I'm keen to dive into some examples I prepared. Justin, unless there's anything specific, any other questions or anything? Okay, cool. All right, so let's get into some examples. So, all right. So the first one I want to do, I'll open each of these as a separate like VS Code thing. So I showed one where I just have that index and where I have that reversed HTML, and I'll share the link to the GitHub for this if you want to check it out. But just in case I forget, or in case you want to check it out right now, you can just go GitHub. You can just go GitHub/Skulkventer, SCHALKVENTER, and it should be this, just /CSS view transitions resources. Okay, you can just have a look here in examples. Okay, so I'll probably add some more to it at a later point. Okay, so where was I? All right, so let's look at the basic sorting. So like having this item 1 and item 2 that just transitions, probably not that useful in a real world circumstance. So let's say we have some countries, okay? And these countries are just, where is it? Basically, I just have them written out. So you'll see I prefetch some other things as well. But I basically just have the flag and the name of the country. Okay, and I just have it as an unordered list with ally elements. And you'll see I do the inline style view transition name BD. And one caveat though is view transition name can't start with a letter. It needs, so it can't start with, I think, like a character or a letter. I really struggled initially because I did like 1 and 2 and 3 and whatever. So just be mindful of that. It can't start with a letter. So if you're using a UUID, I think this is like kind of what tripped me up initially. I was using a UUID, or I was using like some ID that came from a database in an actual real world project. And obviously it was numbers, and it needs to start with a character. And also, if you have you can't have the same one twice. If you have the same view transition name twice, it's just going to fail silently. The animation is not even going to work. It's not going to throw an error or anything. These need to be unique. If there's another one called this, it's just not going to animate. But yeah, and also another thing is, you might see I put it as an inline style. The reason for this is you actually declare these in your CSS. So you would actually go, it's an actual CSS property. So you would actually go, let's say, so in an ideal world, you'd go ID, for example, BD, and then view transition name BD, and ID whatever, and then you would assign an ID here. So you need to assign a view transition names in CSS, and yeah, I'm guessing in future they'll probably provide some other ways to do this more meaningfully without like rewriting the same stuff over and over and over again. My guess is that they're probably gonna have it support the so you do have like data, let's say data key or whatever. At the moment, like we can like you can't do this, but they're probably going to do something like this where you can say all the images, make the view transition name the attribute data key or whatever. Use that, or something like this probably in future. It is a bit verbose at the moment, which is why I just inline it as I'm creating it, and this is fine. Like there's no reason why this doesn't work. But you can almost think about this as if you're using something like React or so forth, like the same way you would use a key to distinguish this is a unique item. Okay, so I just do this for each country. I use the actual code of the country. And check this as I go reversing the order. There we go. Alphabetical reverse, population, order it by population, order it by alphabetical, population reversed, alphabetical. Okay, so check this out. Right, and it automatically just reorders these for me. And it doesn't need to be like linear. I have an example where it's like a grid-based thing as well. That it just calculates what the new thing is, and there's no HTML, there's no JavaScript. This is all just HTML, and I almost want to say I don't think there's even CSS. The only CSS that there actually is this. This is the only CSS. This is literally just HTML. Check this out. Just HTML, 3 lines of CSS. I'm not even styling the unordered list or anything. I cannot explain how amazing this is. Like this just blows my mind. Like how powerful this is. 3 lines of CSS. Okay. And then, so the other one, okay, so obviously this isn't that useful. You're probably not going to hard code every configuration of sorting or filtering, like unless you hate yourself. So you're probably going to use a static site generator like Astro or whatever to create those lists for you beforehand. I just wrote a basic Node script myself to just do this. Just to have a very basic example that's not necessarily bound to 11t or whatever, but effectively all that it does is I just wrote some JS doc comments up here. If you don't know what these things are, don't worry, it's just comments, but it allows you to just like tell VS Code like the shape and the types and stuff. But effectively I just have like all the continents that you can filter by, all the actual ways that you can sort. And here's all the data. So the countries just arranged as an array. And then I just have this function that creates HTML. It takes a continent and takes a sorting option, and it just loops over these, and it figures out which to show and what order to show them in, whatever. And then I just create the HTML as an actual string. I also just have a thing here that calculates what should be prefetched. And basically there you go. Like it's like just this. Basically, I just generate the HTML. And then obviously, so if I just run that, but you're probably going to use something like Astro or whatever. To keep it simple, I just wrote my own little node script that does this. So if I just run that, clearly it generates all these pages for me. So then if I just open that, and cool. So I can go, okay, cool. Continent, Africa, South America, show me all, show me North America, show me all, show me Asia, show me all, show me the population based on population in South America, population in Africa, reverse the population, show me North America, population, alphabetical, and so forth. Okay. So these are, once again, this is just HTML. The extent of the CSS, once again, just this line. I just generate like all these co-configurations as actual HTML pages. But all you're doing here is you're just navigating between pages, and you get this animation effect. Like there's not a single line of JavaScript here. There's 3 lines of CSS. All of this is just plain HTML. It's amazing. Look at this. It's like an app. So you would be, if I told you this is created with React, you'd probably not think twice about it if I told you this is React. Okay. Then, okay, so but the next one is like, okay, that has its limits. You can do that. There are certain projects, like for example, this record one that they have where you know everything up front and you can bind all the possible ways to filter stuff based on like a specific URL. But let's say you want to, I also have an example that I might show a bit later that I did with like movies and stuff as well. But you probably want to have some server-side rendering. And like up until this point, we haven't done any JavaScript. So if you are listening to this and you primarily use Django or Laravel or WordPress or whatever, once again, you can do the exact same thing, just 3 lines of CSS. Just ensure in your templating that you actually indicate like what element is what. So you'll see in my example, I just map it to be like, I just dynamically, when I create the item, I just do an inline view transition name and I just give it the ID. Literally this. You just need to do this in your HTML, in your template, whether that is like, once again, Django or WordPress or whatever. And you just need this bit of CSS. And check this out. So basically, I just have a basic node server here. Just start a server, and all I do is I just parse the URL. I get the continent from the URL. I get the sorting from the URL. I get a search from the URL. And then I just send a 200 back HTML, and I just create the string to send back. Okay, so you can have a look at this. Once again, I'll share the code. But if I just do, sorry, not npm, if I do node server, and if you're wondering about MJS, and Jay, you might see me use MJS files. There's nothing special. It's just like an extension that tells it to you to use the new JavaScript like ES modules, because you might know that if you're using Node, you might need to do, const require. So this is called CommonJS. They are busy switching over to ES modules, which is the default import stuff. But then you just need to, there's a couple of ways to achieve this. The easiest is just to call your file MJS to indicate that you want to use the new thing, but it's still JavaScript files at the end of the day. Okay, so there I'm running my server and so waiting for it to open up. Cool. And cool. So here I just have a basic form here. It's just a get. So let's say I want to sort this by population. Apply. Check that out. Cool. Apply. So it requests a new page. It basically just sends an updated URL, continents, North America. Cool. This is, oh man, I cannot get over this. And now I can even do search. So let's do CH, apply, just China. Okay, apply. Let's do, what? I don't even know what is something that several have. Let's do PH. Oops. Only Philippines.
AN.
Yeah, so. Yay, look at that. Okay, cool. All right. And then you say you want to sort that by population. Check this. All right. Okay. Then the last one is I did one where it's just basic, like JavaScript, like no React, no nothing. So exact same as the server stuff. Only thing is I just render it. I just do inner HTML. So yeah, just list inner HTML, and I'll talk about this animate thing in a second, because things here, there's something else to talk about when you're actually not doing actual page transitions. You'll also see that, because now we're moving into the world of client-side JavaScript, where up until now we haven't run a single line of JavaScript. This is all just HTML and CSS up until this point. I'm using JavaScript, but I'm just using JavaScript to create the pages or to run the server, not actually in the users on consuming any JavaScript. So one thing you will see is when you don't need that navigate, that thing, that you don't need this. If you're handling all your animations, if you're doing a single page app, so if you don't have actual page navigations, you can mix and match them. You don't need to do one or the other. But obviously in this client-side example, I don't have any page navigations. So let me just show this quickly. So obviously one of the benefits of doing this on the client side is you can obviously do things real time. You don't have to actually submit a new URL. So I can go like, and it just like, as I change things, it just like updates automatically. Okay, and as I go CH or AN, check this. Oh, this is so cool. Okay, and all I have is I just have JavaScript, and I have just event listeners. If I can find it between all this, so I basically just I listen for when the sorting changes, when the continent select changes, or when the search input, when the character gets entered or whatever, and I just replace the HTML. Like, I'm not even moving things around. I'm literally recreating all these elements. So this is amazing. So I'm not even going like finding this in the DOM and moving it down there. I'm wiping all of this, recreating all the HTML. But because I tell it like this is the view transition name, it knows to, even if I just recreate all the HTML, it knows that like those are the same thing. So literally, if I open my you'll see it actually just recreates it. There you go. It recreates all of this every time. So I'm not manually moving things around in the DOM. I just override the inner HTML of my list every time. All right, so let's quickly chat about this. So one thing you need to do is you need to tell it by default it's not going to use an animation. Okay, so you'll see, let me just comment this animate thing I have in here out. So by default, if you don't do anything, this is just what it's going to be like. Okay, cool. Just the default behavior, nothing's animating. It just like updates it like that. Okay. So what you have to do is you have to tell it, as Justin mentioned, it does hook into some existing things. So what you have to do is you do document start view transition, okay, and you give it a callback. So what happens is it takes a snapshot of the state of your DOM at the moment when you call this, then it runs the function that you pass as a callback. And after that, it takes another snapshot, compares those two snapshots, and it figures out how to animate. And it does some incredible stuff. I'm not going to go into it. As Justin mentioned, like there's a lot here and it's really great. One of the things that's really cool is it actually takes a visual image of the element. It doesn't like it's like so so what that means is it doesn't matter how complex the thing is. It's just a picture that gets animated. So this thing can be like 1,000,000 DOM nodes deep. It's not going to slow it down. It's just a picture that it treats it as an image and it manipulates the image. It doesn't preserve the actual DOM nodes. And that's been one of the, like up until now, been one of the big problems with animating things is that there are a lot of things that are visual, but you don't want it to actually be considered as part of the DOM for accessibility reasons and so forth. But yeah, I'm not going to go too much into it, but you need to do this. Okay, but so now the problem is some browsers doesn't support this just yet. Obviously, Chrome supports it. Firefox doesn't. Okay, so if I just run this in Firefox updater. Okay. Can I open Firefox? No. Did I run? Okay, I should have probably updated my Firefox before I started presenting. Hopefully it's done updating by the time. Okay, never mind. Here we go. You'll see. But so once again, it's very rare that an animation itself. Oops, something else broke. Yeah. Okay. So obviously it broke because it doesn't document start view transition. So all that you do is, so I just have a little wrapping function that I just call animate. You'll see here. That I just use to wrap this functionality. So just use animate. And then animate is just a function that takes a callback and it checks if document start view transition exists in the browser. Or sorry, if it doesn't exist, then just run the callback as is. Otherwise, pass it to start view transition. And there you go. And when I have this, look, we're in Firefox now. Firefox doesn't support it just yet, but you still get the basic behavior without the without this. You can even use feature queries to, if you want to show a little notice. It falls back pretty nicely. I don't think you have to do this, but let's say you just want to say, I don't know, let's just say div, and you want to say uses CSS view transitions, or let's just say your browser does not support CSS view transitions, but it still works. But the functionality still works. And so what we can do is, let's just give this a class of message. And let's just do some inline style here. And let's just say, if, let's say by default, message is hidden by default. Otherwise, if add feature, this is just plain CSS. I wrote an entire article on this for CSS tricks. If you don't know what this is a couple of years old now. Add feature, and it's very ironic that I
don't supports, Scott.
At supports. It's called feature queries.
Yes.
Yeah. See, and this is a very good example of why I always tell my students, you don't have to memorize everything. Like,
no, you definitely don't.
I literally wrote an article on this for CSS tricks. And like, I can't even remember what the syntax is. Add support. So then you can just do view transition name. And let's just do example or whatever. So I think it's add supports not. So we say if it does not support this piece of CSS, then display block and then take message and turn it into block. Otherwise, just don't do anything. Okay. Yes.
Skulk,
did I miss something?
Your class on your div has 2 A's.
There you go. That's why I keep you around, Justin. All right.
It's my only function. Proofreading.
Cool. Yes. So there you go. Your browser does not support CSS, but the functionality still works. And you'll see then in Chrome, you don't get that because that feature query never fires. All right. So you probably don't need to build in fallbacks for this, but you can if you want. But I don't know. You don't need to tell someone that, hey, this is supposed to be animated, but you're just getting the regular version without the animation. Okay.
So Skulk, just something similar to this is you can also do a prefers reduced motion with this.
That is true as well. And what I really like, okay, so if you don't know what prefers, let's see if I can do this one from my head. Media. Thank you, Copilot. Look at me. Look at me. Okay, so if it's not reduced, okay? So what this means is some users, there's a range of conditions where animations you might prefer there to not be in any animations. You can set that on your browser level, on your operating system level. So in this case, you're just saying if it is, so in this case, I would actually swap it around. So I would actually do an and here. Wait. Oh no.
You can actually do.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna have to think through this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, but let's say, what a lot of people do is they just completely nuke it. So what you do is you can just go HTML, because as Justin mentioned, all of this happens in a pseudo element. You can literally just go view transition and just completely nuke it.
Yeah.
Kill all because everything is in the pseudo element. It's almost like this parallel dimension, and you can just completely nuke it.
Yeah. The other way you can do it is, instead of prefers reduced motion reduce, you can go. Okay, now I'm trying to remember. Prefers reduced motion no preference, and then you just put your animation timeline in that.
Yes.
That's there are lots of ways to do it. Yeah.
But there's this is the primitives. You can assemble it however you want. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's basically it. So then the last one, I just want to talk quickly about React, because obviously, maybe I can show a quick example. Okay. I don't think I'm going to break any NDAs now because I'm just showing the product. But if I get fired, it was nice knowing you guys. But no, the team at Palmetrics is really cool. They won't mind. They'd actually probably like the actual free publicity. So I do consultation work on a product called Palmetrics. We kind of allow people to it's a centralized store where you can manage if you're selling on Takealot and you're selling on Amazon and Shopify and whatever, you can manage everything from a central place. And let me show you guys where I've recently added it. Okay, so if I go products, I'm looking at all my products that I'm selling. These are just made up like mock data and stuff. It does use the staging API, which is like almost no memory, so it is a bit slow. But I can then go visible columns here, and I can say, hey, I want to see for my products, let's clear all. I want to see my DC saleable. I want to see who the buy box winner is. I want to see how it's rated and the reviews. And let's say I want to see how much I've sold over the lifetime of this product or whatever. Cool. So, and then you can also reorder these if you want. And yeah, so if I check this out, if I move, click the up and down, And this is such a nice effect because previously it was a bit jarring because you would just click it and you wouldn't even realize they swapped places. So this in real time, and this just, you'll see if I look at that, it just has the view transition name DC Saleable. Yeah, so this is really nice in terms of just communicating what's happening, because previously someone would, or even if you remove it, if you click it, you can see it kind of get replaced or slide out or whatever. It just like gives a very nice visual cue of what has changed. So this is amazing. It does, like, this is in React, so I had to do a bit of reading, and there's one thing you need to do to get it to play nice with React, and that is by default. So this is the React. So this is an example that I have in the repo where I actually use emotion and material UI just to show how you would actually integrate it with other tools as well. So this is a Vite example that uses React. So I just did some basic extra styling and stuff here with like Vite and whatever. And you'll see, like, this is really cool. Check how this moves. Or continent. Or if I go, AN. There you go. Okay. So yeah, this is React. And so yeah, I wanted to have an example where I kind of just show how this would play with other tooling like emotion and material UI and stuff like that. There is just one thing in React to keep in mind, is that the way that React works is it kind of handles state updates asynchronously, which is an amazing thing. But in the case of like actual making these type of changes to the DOM and wanting animations, you can't handle it asynchronously. You need to force it to happen synchronously. So all you need to do is you need to go and from React DOM, just get flush sync, and flush sync forces it to be synchronous. So it does this thing where it flushes the state. And you just need to tell it to do it synchronously whenever you want to animate. And so I've actually just, what I've done is in this animate thing that I have, where I actually just check if the browser supports it, I also just wrapped the actual start view transition in flush sync. So it forces this to happen synchronously. So basically 1, 2, not even 3, 4, 5, basically 5, 6 lines of code. You just need this, and it works nicely in React. And you just need to call your actual update. So where's my... Yeah, so I have handle sorting, and I just wrap the actual state update in this animator. Just pass the state update as a callback to that. And that makes it play nicely with React. Yeah, and that's about it. This is a lot of stuff. Geez, there's so much more to show. Dave Rupert did a really cool thing, CSS view transitions, where he kind of shows how he is using it to kind of create this effect on his blog, where, see, he also says like you need to enable the flags, but you don't need to do that anymore. Let me just quickly see if... Yeah, check that. You might have missed it, but if you click, it like animates the titles. You can do lots of cool stuff like this as well. It doesn't even need to be just like a classic list of things that you're changing. I just super quickly want to see... I have an example that I deployed to Vercel. I think I've broke it since, but heck, let's see. Maybe I can even get to the old one. I think it was app example. I might have broken it. Yeah, I think I've broken it. But where I have a little, like, I'll see if I can get it working again, and also put it in the comments of the video, where I have like a little super basic like movie registry thing. that I've just built in Astro. Let me just give me a second. Let me just quickly see if I can. Give me 1 second. Maybe I can get it to work. It's actually, I think, in old examples. I just need to move the directory. And let's see if that does the trick. Because it'd be also nice to just show this in terms of like basic proof of concepts and stuff. Right. App example. Hey, cool. Right, check this out. So basically, this thing up here, check this out. Like it actually moves as you navigate between the pages. So featured. This is a cool thing that I just was able to put together. It's basically just a div that changes position. Not even position. It's just nested. It's nested in. I just nested somewhere else. So it's nested in there. But if you go to this page, and this is all just plain HTML. There's not a single line of JavaScript on here. You do drama, sport, yeah. So you also have this animation effect here. Featured. What's also really cool is, as mentioned, so it keeps track of, as long as you give this a unique ID, then if I do this, it actually moves it from there. It keeps track of. Check this out. So even this thing here at the top just moves. And then if I go, for example, there, check this goes downwards, the title goes up. And I can close it. I can favorite it. I think, yeah. So this favorite stuff, I think this is the only JavaScript I have. I just save it in local storage. Whether it's favorited or not. Yeah, check here in local storage. So if I just favorite a couple of things, I can just close it. You'll see it goes back to where it was. Favorite that as well. And let's just get Sopranos as well. And maybe just, let's go comedy, and let's get Seinfeld as well. So then I also just have this. If you now go to favorites over here, you can just move this up and move it down, and yeah. So this is amazing. I cannot express to you how satisfying it is just seeing this, and knowing how much work it took to get this to work previously without CSS. Yeah. Yeah, and check
I'm
this out.
having flashbacks to libraries like Isotope and all those things.
What's it? Metaphysi.
Metaphysi.
I remember back in the day. I don't want to name the company, but this was like a 3-sprint project. Getting this to work. This. And now, literally, you'll see this is indistinguishable from.
Exactly. Yeah.
What we had what I just showed now, and this is an entire JavaScript library, and you need to look at this. You need to actually run it in your JavaScript to create the stuff. You can't even have this in HTML. This is
a night.
Yeah. This is, oh man. Okay. I think that is about it from my side. I don't know if there are any questions or whether there's anything from your side, Justin, or I'm keen to chat about this.
There's a comment just around, let's not neglect learning HTML and CSS in favor of JavaScript, which is a very important thing to say, I think, especially if we look at CSS and the way it's changed over the last couple of years. It's been massively significant, and I absolutely agree with you, as you said in the beginning, that this is a massive shift in thinking about how we do things in the browser.
But I do also I also want to say that I don't think the problem is. I think it's fine to neglect CSS. Real talk. I think it's fine if that's not what you're pursuing.
Sure.
In the same way that some people might not go learn React or whatever. Someone like Hayden Pickering might be I'm not really going to dive into JavaScript. I think it's a good thing. I think it's a good thing that it's getting so specialized. And I think a lot of the new intrinsic stuff, the intrinsic web stuff that's coming into CSS, like a lot of the stuff that Miriam Suzanne is pushing, like CSS is becoming like a full-on language in itself.
It is, yeah.
In the same way that you might be like, I'm not gonna learn C#, or I'm gonna maybe learn Go. I'm maybe gonna learn a bit of Python. But in the same way, like I think it's becoming a deliberate decision to really just go straight to Tailwind. And honestly, like a lot of people would hate me or give me flack for this, but I think more power to you. Like if you're like, I want to eventually go the route of actually getting like writing WASM, and actually like writing like cloud functions in JavaScript, and almost like like I almost want to call out Mike here. Mike is also someone who just started as a general front end person, and now he's doing like a lot of solid like back-end engineering work. And I think more power to you. But what I do think is, I think what I have issue with is the idea that like you finish up CSS in like, and then you move on to JavaScript. I think you decide, like, especially if you're starting out, do I really want to get deep into the CSS, the like product design, the UI stuff, or do I want to go more into the realm of TypeScript and API calls and like gRPC and those type of things? And I think it's obviously you can do both. I do both, but like I treat it in the same way as I kind of saw, for example, when I learned Haskell, I kind of saw that as I'm going to learn Haskell now. It's something I'm going to do on top of my existing skill set. And I think we're at a place where it's like you have to decide, I'm going to learn CSS. It's not something you just learn on the go, like as an aside while you're learning JavaScript.
No, definitely not. And I think that's what that comment was specifically saying.
Yeah. But I'm always very cautious. I'm very cautious always of like trying to, because I do see this a lot, and I think it comes from a place of insecurity, and it drives me wild where people try and shame people for liking JavaScript and wanting to pursue JavaScript.
It's
so stupid. I hate it. It's like, if you enjoy JavaScript, leave the CSS, pull in Tailwind. There are some people, I'm not going to name names, but there's even some big people in the web community who try and make you feel guilty for just being like skipping CSS and going straight to JavaScript. Like F that, like seriously. Like, but if you enjoy the CSS stuff, I think it's also very liberating in knowing that it's something you can really dive into. It's not like 6 weeks and then you're exhausted. It's exhausted and there's nothing else to learn. And it's just it's just gonna get even wilder from here on out. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely agree. Something not. And I was just thinking as you were going through the view transitions stuff, that I really think we should do a follow-up on the scroll timelines animations. I don't know if you've looked into that at all.
No.
Because it's also part of this. And again, few lines of CSS, let's do animations that we would have had to write crazy JavaScript for.
That's probably like 50% of like all WordPress extensions being
exactly
being redundant.
No, they will.
Yeah.
Like I want a parallax for this. Okay, let's find what plugin do we have? You can do that with a little bit of CSS. Progress bars, all these kinds of things are very powerful. And part of all this new stuff, that's work that's being done on animation. And it's really sad again that the browser that's not supporting it yet is Firefox.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't want to
But
give them too hard of a time, but it is it is a pity. But luckily, when it comes to animation, it's like it's not the end of the world.
no, I completely agree, and I think it's a very good point you made up front that it's a progressive enhancement, and it's not going to stop anything from working. It's not going to break. You're just not going to get you know, it's an aesthetic element rather than anything else. Well, I mean, not entirely aesthetic, because motion does add to usability in some
No,
ways.
definitely. It's massive, but I think it's just been not an like we've almost kind of gotten used to just not having it as a visual affordance for so
Yes.
long that like
Yeah.
someone's not going to be like, "What the hell? Why is everything so janky?" So we're just so used to the web being that way that
Yeah, exactly. And I think
yeah.
something else that I was thinking about while you were speaking as well is that I kept thinking like to keyframe animations, and how when they came out, there was this like mini hype. Oh, look at
Yes.
what we can animate now in the browser. And then everyone quickly realized, well, okay, but I have no control over these. I can't control them in any way without writing JavaScript. Yeah.
Green
So
sock.
and and you just stopped really seeing them used. But this view transition, scroll timeline, all this opens up a whole new use case for keyframes.
Yeah. Let me actually show a super quick example while we're talking about, because I do have an example because obviously I have a lot of examples where I was just playing around, and I have in a code pen. I'll maybe link this as well in the comments, where I actually made a little like counter thing, which I actually did for the discussion where Mike and I chatted about this, where I actually use that a lot more intently. So let me just quickly see. So basically, this is just in terms of the actual HTML that's here. Here it is. It's a button. Has like I just have some ARIA stuff there, just out of habit.
Yeah.
It's a button, it's a plus, and it's a value, and then I just actually have this thing down here, which is your browser does not support CSS transitions. Let me just quickly see if that actually fires on Firefox. Oh, okay. I need a pro version of CodePen, but effectively, yeah. Oh, I broke it because I was trying to show. Oh no, I broke it while Mike and I was chatting.
Animation duration.
Yes, okay, but no, and I added some stuff to it to illustrate
Oh, I see.
like principles and stuff. But
there we go. Sort of.
Yeah. Whoa. Hey.
Is it there? Awesome.
Yeah. And literally, what I'm doing is I'm literally just going in JavaScript, and I'm literally just changing
update.
the inner text, the value inner
amazing.
text. Check this. I'm literally just changing this. So if you look at the actual DOM, it's just the inner. And I also had it. I broke it as well. But if you go back, it animates the other way around. Let me see if I can fix that. Okay, I'll have a look and see if I can fix that. But yeah, like so, this is where. Oh yeah, and I didn't even mention this. Yeah, so in the React example, I also used a view transition class, which I don't really even want to go into that. That's another thing. But in the same way that I used view transition name, which is kind of like an ID, it indicates a unique thing. You can actually do. Where is that now? You can actually do view transition class to indicate like a type of thing. So I just have card, and then I'm just saying all cards should, the animation duration should be 0.8 seconds. And I don't even want to get into this part, but you can exercise a lot of control.
Yeah, there's so much. Yeah,
yeah.
This is great. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I forgot about that, and I just
Nice.
thought it's like a good example. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, like what are we looking at? Yeah, we have like 10 minutes
Yeah.
and then we're hitting the 2-hour mark. So we can probably start ending off maybe one or two more questions. I don't know if there's anything in text chat or from your side, Justin.
No, there's nothing coming through at the moment, unless anyone has any questions. I just think, as I mentioned before, I think it's worth doing a follow-up on all the other new animation things that we've got available for us. I don't know if you saw that transform now takes multiple values that are independent of each other.
No, really?
Yeah. Okay. So, previously, if you wanted to transform something multiple times, you were stuck on the same timeline. Now you can scale, rotate, and translate independently.
Yeah, because I know previously you'd had to put it on another DOM node.
Yes,
so
exactly.
Sometimes you'd nest. Sorry, I just want to share. Someone asked in there.
I added it.
Oh, okay. I just shared it as well. But yeah, so you can just keep it on there. If anyone's just want to copy it from the screen.
So this is the link to the repo, everyone. It should be clickable in the chats, or copyable.
Yeah. Okay. So usually I would nest if I wanted to do 3. I wanted to rotate something and shrink it and move it. I would nest those in 3 divs and control each one. Oh, really? I didn't see that. I also saw that height is now actually transitionable. What a time to be alive.
In Chrome, yeah.
Yeah.
And so is display block and display none.
What a time to be alive.
It's wild out there.
Yeah, the next, honestly, I don't know. It's a great time to be care about CSS.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because I think and it's almost I think what the thing is. I think it's for a very long time it was just so hard to do basic stuff like create a grid layout with float and to reorder something vertically and horizontally as the screen changes, or do dark mode and light mode. And I think as these things have gotten so much easier to do, I think it's kind of opened up the community to be okay, cool, now that we don't have to spend brain power on these other things, are there some advanced stuff that we can start looking at, like this, like the view transitions and stuff? So it's
definitely
such an exciting. I actually don't write that much CSS day in, day out. The extent that I do, it's design systems, so I basically create the atomic level elements and then just recompose them. It's very rare that I just open up CSS and I go background red or whatever. Justin, you probably do the same as well. But I think this is one of those cases where I really want to dive into CSS on a daily basis again, so much more.
Agreed. The first time I played around with scroll timeline, I was like, oh, this is incredible.
I actually haven't played around with it that much. Is it behind a flag, or is it
not
production ready?
When I did it, it was a while ago. It was behind a flag, but I think it's now just available in Chrome or Chromium based browsers. So Edge and all the other derivatives. I think Firefox and Safari are still lagging on that one. But again, it's a progressive enhancement, as you say.
Yeah, and I think with Firefox, I don't know what the future holds for Firefox. It's actually, I get they have to really become much leaner and decide where they want to focus, but it's weird, like just thinking about like when back in the day when Jen Simmons was heading it up, like just what a powerhouse Firefox was.
Yeah, they pioneered the new layouts and pushed the other browsers into it.
Yeah, and like now Firefox being the one that's lagging behind is, I don't know, it just shows how quickly things can change. But
I think they strategically have pushed in the last couple of years towards privacy above all else, and a lot of and they obviously have limited resources. They're not Google.
Yes. I think they're undoing. I don't want to say undoing. It's too early to tell, but I think their biggest threat is Chromium, actually.
Yeah, definitely.
So their competitors are like Brave and those guys, and not necessarily Chrome. But I don't know. Maybe there's a wild world where Firefox actually runs Chromium. I mean, like it happened with Edge.
Chromium with all the security and privacy. Interesting.
Yeah. So like basically, like there's a possible future where it's just WebKit and Chromium. But anyway, what a wild note to end this talk on. But thanks for joining, Justin.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks
really
for presenting that. It's just incredible stuff, and your demos were really great.
Thanks, man.
And thanks to everyone who's joined us, and the conversation and all the demos and everything will of course be archived on YouTube, so you can always dig into it at your leisure or share it. We'll keep an eye on the meetup page. We'll have a new one announced soon.
Yeah.
All right.
Cool. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.